what other pitfalls might companies have when they're trying to achieve? What are you seeing when companies come for certification?
Yeah, I mean, from a control base, like, I think the companies that we've seen, just because the program, the actual CMMC assessment program is so new, I think we have a lot of early adopters and people that are fairly mature organizations that really just want to get ahead of this. And so I think their technology stacks are usually pretty good. And it's not typically like something like FedRAMP where there's so many controls that it's a lot more onerous for them to meet all of them. I don't know if it's entirely super onerous for people to meet the controls as much as it is, collecting the documentation and just validating that their scope is in place. I mean, the scoping is by far the biggest issue with CMMC, because I think what people don't understand is, or people approach it from something like a system-centric and kind of a very focused view, where this is data-centric, so it hits all of the systems, peoples, and processes that flow through your system, right? It's a contaminant, so the second it touches the system, it becomes part of the scope. And I think people they don't consider all of the items. So I mean, endpoints, printers, things like that, they'll all have to have this stack of security controls. So it can get a kind of overwhelming for some of the OSCs that come in. They think they have really segmented and understood your scope, and then a C3PO asks a question about an asset that they didn't think was in scope or they didn't consider during their preparation, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of questions about that asset, and they weren't prepared and they didn't properly implement all of the controls.
That's a key part of when we do our pre-assessments and help them get there is scoping, because if you're not properly segmenting, anything that stores, processes, or transmits CUI comes in scope. And when you start realizing where the connections are and you start going down this network path and have them draw a diagram of the data flows, they suddenly realize, oh, the data's going somewhere it didn't need to go. Do we want to pull that in scope, or do we just stop the connection? Those are part of the pre-assessment workloads that you go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other piece of this is the inventorying, right? And this is kind of where the CMMC L2 scoping guide, which is a document produced, I think by the Department of War, that essentially helps you classify these assets into different scoping categories. So you have your CUI assets, you have your security protection assets, your contractor risk managed assets, your specialized assets, and your out of scope assets. And all of these different classes of assets have to kind of match up with your traditional, some people use configuration management databases, your hardware, firmware, software, inventories. Those all have to fall in line with one of these categorizations. So if it's a CUI asset, it gets the full Monty, it gets the full treatment of all of those controls. And then the handling caveats kind of go down from there. But you see something like the CRMAs, these might be, all right, I'm using an endpoint, but it's not processing, storing, or transmitting CUI, but it is within this environment that I have, so it's considered this. So I have to list it within my inventory and within my SSB, but I have to demonstrate basically how I'm separating this from those CUI assets, so it's not, to use the metaphor that I had earlier, just contaminated. It's not being mixed in with that scope.